Welcome. My name is Peja Stojcic and I'm a senior scholar with Reading Health. This video is to help you prepare for the Story of Self, Us and Now breakout session of the Community Engagement Training. The purpose of Story of Self, Us and Now breakout session is to help your participants craft and tell their story of self, us and now, like the full public narrative, and then you also want to help them learn how to coach each other on the full public narrative and build additional relationships with each other. This session is usually 35 to 45 minutes long, and you should have 3 to 5 participants in your session. If you have more than 5 participants, or you feel that the agenda in the participant manual is not adjusted to the number of participants that you have in your group, make sure you make a note and tell your trainer so they can change that in a participant manual, and you will have enough time to facilitate this session effectively. In a Story of Self, Us and Now breakout session, you start by welcoming people as usual, checking the norms and making sure that your timekeeper who you selected in a previous session is still ready and happy to go and fulfill his or her role. In terms of the introduction, people will usually, because this is a session, this part is a little bit different than the first part, the story of self, people might have a lot of questions. What you want to do as a facilitator is really help them move into practice fast. So instead of spending a lot of time answering those questions, you might say, let's practice, let's do the practice, and then afterwards we will have time, if there's still something unclear, we will have time to answer those questions. This is something that is really crucial, because remember, this is not about intellectual understanding what the story of self, us and now is. This is more about getting them to experience what it looks like to share the story and really get the feedback from their participants and from you. In terms of the next item on the agenda, you will give them time to think, usually 5 to 10 minutes, to think individually about their story. And again, you can direct them to the worksheet in the participant guide. But make sure you mention that, again, it's not about the worksheet, it's about telling a story with challenge, choice, and an outcome, and really crafting that narrative in a way that other people can understand that. After they finish their individual working on a story, you will ask them to share the story for 3 minutes, and then the group will give them feedback for 2 minutes. Again, as in previous session, make sure you make a note to your timekeeper that when the alarms goes on, they should be people should stop, and all of you should thank them for participating. In this case, it might be even more difficult because there are 3 components of the story that they want to share. Now let's go to the debrief. As we talked about in the Story of Self breakout session, there are two ways to debrief the story of self, us, and now. Like direct coaching from you that you can provide to a person, or you can elicit the coaching from the group. So basically the story and the strategy is the same. In this case, what you will be looking for is that you're looking for 3 components of the story. You're looking for story of self, you're looking for story of us, and you're looking for story of now. I would say one piece of advice is that maybe the most important thing in this is to really see if there is a clear call to action at the end of the story, at the end of the public narrative. So if there's no clear call to action, start with that. Ask the person, okay, what should we do after we listen to your story? And finally, if they develop a good call to action, then you can move to different pieces, to the story of us and to the story of self. There's a tendency for people to not to share the story of self when they are asked to tell the full public narrative, and this is another thing for you to remind them. It's not just about talking about these big issues. Usually they're focused on the story of now because they're comfortable there. That's the story that they will tell. They're telling a lot in general kind of like these are the challenges, this is the nightmare that we are facing, and basically, this is the hope that we might experience. But the story of self is usually neglected, and people will forget to tell that part. Again, as in the first session, I just want to remind you of a practice called guideposting, where whenever you coach someone in the group or you observe a particular coaching behavior, you will tell people what you're going to do, then you will do it, and then you will debrief what just happened so they can also improve their coaching practice. So this is the story of self, us, and now facilitation video. Before you move to the next one, I will just ask you to answer a couple of questions that we have for you, and good luck.